Hello, my name is Graeme Medd. I'm a senior lecturer here at Keio University, and we're going to go through Unit 1B a little bit. This unit is entitled Less is More, and as usual, it has two or three themes all together in quite a short space. So what we've got here is a reading, we've got vocabulary and grammar, and the reading is a means of introduction to these two themes. We're not going to go through the reading in detail, but I'll give you a little bit of advice. I mean, the photo, you could look at that and see what kind of person lives in a place like this. And this would be someone who is minimalist, that is to say, who likes things to be simple and without any extra additions, if you like. Um, so when you're looking at a reading like this, let me just recommend one thing. I mean, most of you don't read at all, right? So it's good that we have one reading per unit at least, and there's one reading in the workbook if per unit, if you have access to that. One thing that is useful to this, if we can look at the questions, you'll see you've got some questions there. A crazy number, things about toys, right? So this happens in a lot of the exams you have also in TOEFL, in IELTS, in CEFAT. You have to do a reading and answer some questions, right? So just a useful thing that I feel is useful anyway. You read it first, just quickly go through it. Look at the questions again. Some people like to look at the questions before they read. And then look for the words, the key words in the questions and in the text. So you got like crazy, you got toys, phones. So that's what you do. You go looking for these words. You send your eye, as it were, looking for these words, right? So this is a three-part reading. So, and the others are not here. So we're not going to dwell on that. But please try to read as much as you can anyway. That's just an extra thing. There's also a point here. There's also a point here when they talk about facts or opinions. This is also very useful because many people think their opinions are facts. Yes, and so it's good to distinguish them. So you can see in the text, it gives the example here of crazy. Well, that's just someone's opinion. I mean, what's crazy for one person is not for another person. So when we're talking about facts, you're talking about data, you're talking about numbers, locations, and so on. Yes, and he mentions the number 12. So these are facts. This is just an extra thing that they've included in the text, well worth remembering. So let's move on from the opinions. Now let's look at the grammar section. So the grammar they've chosen for this particular unit is with gerunds and infinitives. Yeah, you've probably studied gerunds before. You remember Murphy. If you studied destinations, there's a destinations A now also. You've got destinations B1, B2. These are all excellent for giving an explanation about that. Basically, what we can say and what's relevant to here is that you use the gerund in three particular situations: when it's a subject of a sentence or the object, such as swimming is good for you, or living in Tashkent is more expensive than living in Karshi, for example. When it's followed, when it comes after certain verbs, when you need a verb after another verb. So, for example, some verbs oblige you to use the gerunds. Enjoy, for example. And when it's after a preposition, right? So we've got a combination of all these things here. Then we also have the infinitive with to. And then finally, we have a couple of tricky verbs which are to go on and to look forward to. which are unusual, and we'll come to that in just a minute. Can you see that on your screen? Yes, 3A. Shall we go through the answers there? I'll just do it very briefly. Refer to is always followed by a noun. So if you need a noun when it's a verb, then it must be designing. So this ing form is the noun form of the verb, right? So be careful, because many people, usually to is followed by an infinitive, yes? Like in the 80% of the verbs are like want to, need to, I promise to. So you could say like 80% of the verbs are like this, but 15% are followed by a gerund form. And then you've got a few strange ones, which we'll talk about, perhaps like let or make. And verbs like remember, forget, try, stop, which can be used with both forms but have different meanings. These are also in this unit in a subsequent slide. So we got designing, succeeded in, or in is a preposition, so it must be persuading. Turn out to be. This is a standard gerund form. The meaning of turn out to is it's a useful expression. It means the result of something is often with a surprise. Yeah. So, for example, I thought it would be terrible, but it turned out to be very nice. Yeah. Now we come to one of the unusual verbs which they focus on here, which is to go on. Okay, so the meaning of go on is two meanings, really. Is one is to continue doing something. So you go on dancing, we went on talking. And there's another use with the to form, which means something is later. So it comes at a later time. It's not a continuation, it's something later, posterior, if you like. So this one is went on to become, because that's what he did later in his life. Believe in, that's a standard thing. So it's a preposition, so it must be ing. And look forward to is an unusual one. There are a couple like this, which is to be used to get used to, and to look forward to. These are the most common ones. And it's to followed by a gerund. So be careful about that. This is used a lot in letters, at least it used to be when people used to write letters. Yeah, I look forward to hearing from you. So here we've got a little review of this. They introduce also stop, right? So we've got a double use of stop with infinitive and stop with to is different. So for example, maybe during Ramadan, you would stop having lunch because Muslims don't eat lunch in Ramadan, right? But he stopped to have lunch means that whatever he was doing, he stopped it and then he had lunch. So they've given an explanation here. They persuaded people to stop collecting useless stuff. It means they don't want them to do it, right? If you said he stopped to collect the rubbish from the street, that would mean that he was doing something else and then he did that. So there's another explanation here. We stop to think about means you stop what you're doing and you do the second action. They've also given this other explanation here. Stop plus ing means to change a habit or change an activity. Yeah, like stop talking so much, right? So let's move on. You can follow these up more if, as I said, in the famous Murphy and in Destinations, they have great explanations. Here you have a pretty you have a review of this. We've seen the first one. You've got hope to, that's a standard one. Hope to, want to, need to. Then like playing, you can say like to play. They're pretty much the same. Some people make a big difference out of them, but for all intents and purposes, they're pretty much the same. But you must be careful, because if you use would, then you must use to. So I like playing football. Would you like to play football? That's the only form possible. So they've given some examples of prepositions here. Think about, succeed in, believe in, concentrate on, dream about, apologize for, struggles with. These are all followed by gerunds. That's an ironclad rule. Now, that's a rule that you must always follow. They've given some others, carry on. Then you've got the exception, look forward to, and these phrasal verbs. Yes, you could say phrasal verbs or with a preposition. It comes down to the same thing. They're followed by a gerund form. Now we've got, if you go to look at over here at the phrasal verbs there, you've got go on dancing and she went on dancing and she went on to be. As we've said, went on to be is a future idea. They also give the example of grow up, which is grow up watching, which is something you did in the past, and grow up to be, which refers to a future event, right? You also have some, there's an explanation there of the grow up question. You've got another explanation of stop to and stop with the gerund. I stopped to talk, I stopped listening. So remember, if you say stop to talk, it means you stop what you're doing and you do another action, right? You've also got remember, which people find tricky. There's different explanations of this. That I mean, remember playing is always referring to the past. Remember to, here they give an excellent explanation which says you have a responsibility, which you mustn't forget. You can also think about it in general terms as remember to as the present or the future, but not always. This is a very good explanation that they give here. Right, so let's have a look at this as an example. She's never cared about, so that is a preposition, so it must be a gerund. So what is it? It must be having. After university, Ahmed went on. So this is the future. It's a future idea. So he went on to become. Gave up. That's a very common phrasal verb that you've probably come across on many occasions. He gave up collecting. He stopped an activity. Phrasal verb. Turned out. Turned out is one which we've seen earlier. You turn out to be ideal. Ideal is one of the vocabulary group for this unit, which we'll see in a minute. Apologize for, standard preposition, apologize for arriving, and look forward to, this exceptional one which we've seen, which is look forward to starting, not to start. Remember that one. So there you've got the answers there. Can you see those? Yes, I got them right. That's good. Right, let's move on. So here's a bit of practice with that. Let's do this quickly because we have other things to cover. So are these sentences the same? Well, in number one, they're clearly not, because Kim went on playing means what? She or he continued to do that and went on to play would be something they did later. So this would be Kim went on to play the guitar at several venues, and Kim went on playing his guitar even though his parents were not happy, even after a string broke. Pete remembers calling. Pete remembers to call. So remembers calling. We've said this is related to the past always. Pete remembers to call is his kind of responsibility, as it's been explained before. So that must be A. His grandmother every day to check she's okay. And he stopped drinking and she stopped to drink. She stopped drinking soda because it's unhealthy. So she finished this activity. She stopped to drink water because she was thirsty. So she stopped running and then she had a drink of water, right? So I hope that's clear. You must review these because they're very, very common structures. Let's move on then. Here you've got some more practice with this. Let's do this very, very quickly because we have a lot to look at in this unit. Still, we have the vocab. So you can see dream about, it must be a gerund, yes? Stop It means you don't want to keep doing it. So this must always be also be a gerund. Concentrate on, it must be a gerund. So that must be appreciating. Yes. There's no way to sit down or eat. I can't carry on. So carry on is a phrasal verb. That's a preposition. So that must be a gerund also. Before you go to bed, remember, this is not something about the past. This is something you have a responsibility to. So that must be remember to put. It must be an infinitive. And the third one, problem. This happens with clothes. You have piles of them, but you can't find what you want. Eventually you give up. It's a phrasal verb. Preposition must be a gerund. And number 7, it might turn out, we've already said this, turn out is always with to. Turn out to be. All right, let's move on to these, to the vocabulary here. So we've got these adjectives from the text. So you'll need to refer back to the text if you have a physical copy of the book. So words which mean the same as perfect. What do you got? Ideal. So if you're a Russian speaker, there's a very similar word in Russian. Yeah. Dream, which can be an adjective, a dream job, a dream situation. Which two phrases mean I don't like, to be a fan of, it's not for me. Yeah. There's a little bit informal. Remember, they're not, don't use them in formal situations. Which phrase means don't need? So if you go back to the text and you have a look, do without. This is very common in spoken English. Yeah, I can do without. This means you don't want this problem, for example. Which word means you enjoy or be thankful for something? Appreciate. Yeah, excellent words. Appreciation. I appreciate it very much. Yeah, a nice thing to say to people. Which phrase means make someone happy? Give someone pleasure. We also say it's my pleasure when you would say like pожалуйста, if you like, if you're in Russian, right? So it's my pleasure. And which word means the kind of things you like, your tastes. You can have good taste, you can have bad taste, you can have rather eccentric tastes, yes, as some of the people perhaps in this text do, in the text we've seen. Right, so let's do a bit of practice with that. Zulayeva, nice name, yeah, says for creative people, the homes she designs are, so it must be ideal because you need an adjective. Pleasure is a noun, right? So she thinks minimalism allows us to stand. We haven't talked about this verb. Stand means comes up in the next unit, actually. It means to bear something. So this is irrelevant here. It must be appreciated. She believes she can do without so many things, which means she doesn't need them, right? Richard is doing his first job. That's not what it is talking about. It's talking about how excited he is. So it's his dream job. Yeah. You could also say my nightmare job, but we don't have that in this text, right? Minimalism isn't, the taste makes no sense. It's not grammatical. It doesn't make any sense at all. So it's not for him because he dreams of is not a big fan of. He's not a big fan of blank, empty spaces. He dreams of would be grammatically correct, but logically not correct. So you have to be careful also when you're doing an exam, for example. It's not only the grammar that counts, it's the logic. Does it make any sense? Yeah. His objects give taste is not a collocation. If you know what a collocation is, it's words that naturally go together. It's to give pleasure. He also says people have different it has to be tastes because we haven't discussed their hopes. Yes, of course people do have different hopes, but it's not the context here. Okay, so I hope that's clear. If you have any doubt, you can review it again. Yes, so you can see the answers there. Here's another screen of practice. Yeah, one sound or smell that gives me pleasure is, this is just, you can imagine something for yourself, right? It could be, some perfume or something, right? Okay, so let's move on to the pronunciation. when there are prepositions, yeah, do you stress the preposition? Well, you don't. So let's practice these. I believe in living a simple life. So I believe in living. So the in is not very stressed. Yeah. He succeeded in finding. He succeeded in finding. So the stress here is on finding. In is hardly stressed at all. Of course, you must say it. Yeah. You should think about tidying your stuff. So actually, there's considerable stress on, more stress on the word after the preposition, but the preposition itself is not stressed. Just concentrate on appreciating the simple things. You could also stress the simple things if someone was, very complicated. Um, so these are some things that you can do yourself. I don't care about being famous. I don't care about owning lots of things. You can do this yourself and record also, right? So just to finish off, here's some vocabulary and some expressions. Yeah, some nice pictures there, rather strange looking shapes. Yeah. So who are you? So this is talking about people's tastes and habits, desires, and so on. Let's have a look at that. Right, so we've got some contrasts here. Be careful with some of these expressions. A social butterfly, right? A stay at home. These are both accepted expressions, but we don't use them a lot in conversations. So some people say, well, I'm a social butterfly. We don't say this very frequently, yeah, unless the context demands it. So is your ideal, you have a context for each one. I'm not going to bother to read it. So I enjoy, remember, I enjoy doing something with a gerund. Messy or tidy contrasts someone who is messy is the 15 minutes, sorry, the messy means the same as untidy. It's an opposite. So I'm a big fan of, I prefer, don't forget, I prefer with the gerund, right? Or I prefer, dancing to watching TV. I prefer to dance rather than watch TV, but that's a more complicated one. Social media fan or non-user, something you can do or do without. A multitasker. Yep, they say women are better at this than men. That's you can discuss that some other time, or we could discuss it. Yes, a future dreamer, happy with now. Someone who dreams about, cares about, must have a gerund. Follow a tradition, independent, someone who believes in or doesn't care about, and a planner and non-planner. So these are general categorizations. There are many, many more. So don't forget, I don't put off. Put off is a phrasal verb and it's followed by a gerund. So I think that's the end of the unit. I hope you enjoyed it and that you keep on studying this book as much as you can. Don't forget to review.